So, you know, sometimes in basketball, I'm just like, that's a smart trade for a team, for both teams. Like, there's a win-win trade. Every now and then, I'm like, hey, it fits this team, it fits the other team. Okay? And then sometimes I'm like, what the heck are both of those guys thinking? Okay? And this is one of those times. The Brooklyn Nets want to trade for the one, the only James Harden. What the actual heck is happening? Um, So for those of y'all that don't know, it's basically the Nets trade package. It looks something like Spencer Dinwiddie, Karis LeVert, Jared Allen, and Tar uh, and picks. Um, yeah, I got issues with this big time. So we'll start off with the obvious. Okay, we'll start off with the Nets. So Kevin Durant and James Harden have played together, even if it was what 5 or 6 years ago. So yeah, they have played together before. But that was before James Harden was a step back three guy that he is today, okay? That was before all of this. Or yeah, that was back when it was, on the Thunder. And Thunder James Harden is very, very, very different from Rockets James Harden. Kyrie Irving has never played with James Harden in his life, save for, possibly an Olympic or, All-Star team that I'm not aware of. So in either way, those don't count. Um, so this or the past off season, it seemed like everyone was teaming up in duos. LeBron and AD, Kyrie and KD, Jimmy and Bam, Harden and Westbrook. It seemed like everyone was like finding a best friend and saying, "Hey, you want to go to Oklahoma City? You want to go to Miami? You want to go to LA with me?" Which is all like good and fine, right? But then it creates the idea that a trio just automatically becomes better than everything else, right? And I think the Brooklyn Nets are trying to put this to the extreme here, okay? With this hypothetical trade for James Harden. Also, this from James Harden perspective, this went from hey, I'm gonna stay with Houston no matter what to I want out very quickly. And obviously, this could all just be rumors, right? We don't know for sure. Um, so the deal here with the Nets perspective is Kyrie is not a team leader. Okay, I think we can all agree on that. He is not a leader. He's not exactly a great teammate either. Now, obviously, it's all about situation for some guys. Example, Jimmy Butler. But with Kyrie, I don't think it's the situation. I just think it's that he's a very polarizing individual. This is the man that said Thanksgiving was racist and that the earth was flat. I mean, if you believe that, good for you. But like, dude, science, my guy. Anyways, he seems like a very polarizing individual, a very skilled individual, but a guy that's, agree, disagree with, right? There's no in between, it seems like, with him. So the issue here is James Harden adding a third superstar that's going to need, his amount of touches. KD is going to need his amount of touches. Kyrie is going to need his amount of touches. It gets to a point where, hey, when is it too much? When do we have too much talent on this team? Which sounds dumb, but if you think about it, it's very difficult to coach teams that have, lots of superstars. I mean, look at the Thunder, back when that was a thing. But anyways, back when the Thunder had their big three, look at how quickly it took them to break up. And that's why I think, the coaches that coach superstar teams of like three, deserve more credit. Like Steve Kerr, Eric Spoelstra. I think they're better coaches than most people, assume they are. Well, people think Eric Spoelstra is a good coach now. But Steve Kerr, I think people, until he proves us otherwise, I think we need to assume that he's a better coach than most people give him credit for. Because managing these teams where there's, three or four guys that are all, could claim to be the best player on said team it does get tricky for sure, especially when you have personalities such as, Draymond Green. Personality is obviously a big, issue. The next issue, we saw it this past NBA season, 2020 season. And now, it might not necessarily, it might have been because of the whole bubble situation, but we saw that teams with the better chemistry did better. Look at the Clippers. The Clippers did not play together a lot at all, right? They had more bench depth and they had a better team on paper, but they lacked chemistry. And that proved to be the deciding factor here. Look at a team like the Heat. The Heat, on paper, are not the best team in the East. They're not even the second best. They're arguably even the third best team in the East. But they still came out of the East because of a mixture of things, but one of the key things there being chemistry, right? Look at the Lakers. I mean, look at what Alex Caruso said a couple of days ago about something about G League players. And it was they're not able to succeed because they don't accept their role. Alex Caruso is a role player, and he does that very well. And that's one of the things that allows chemistry to build, and that's one of the things that gave the Miami Heat so much success is, everyone knows their role. I mean, look at Myles Leonard. He was moved to the bench midway through, or not midway through the season, at the start of the bubble. He didn't get much playing time at all. But when I looked at the bench, him and Haslam, they were the most involved guys I've ever seen on the bench. They were out there cheering, fist pumps, dapping the guys up, all sorts of good stuff. And that's the stuff I like to see. And obviously, when you don't have a guy like that on your team, you need to get rid of him. A guy like Dion Waiters, this is the dude that overdosed on a single weed gummy, posted a picture on a yacht when he called in sick, said he was the best shooting guard in Miami Heat history, I believe. And they got him out there real quick. But what do you do when the Dion Waiters on your team is Kyrie Irving, right? A superstar. What do you do when that's the case? And what do you do when you have another strong-minded individual like Harden or something like that? That's where it gets tricky. So that's why I think the Nets should not trade for James Harden. Just my opinion, as I've said before, or as I said before in this video at least, talent does not necessarily equal championship. Most of the times it does, but you just can't put, say, 4 All-Stars on the same team and expect them to win a championship, right? Like, if you gave me Russell Westbrook, say you gave me Jimmy Butler, say you gave me LeBron James, say you gave me Draymond Green, that's not a championship team. It looks like it because people are going to look at it and say, oh, there are 4 All-Stars, but personality is a big deal, just flat out fit. I mean, James Harden's out there launching, 40 shots a night? I mean, he's good at it. He's good at getting fouled and all, but it doesn't necessarily equal, good overall play. He's not on bad as defense as most people think he is. He is a below average defender, but he's not awful. But the point I'm trying to make here is there are tons of players that I think would be a better fit and would be actually or not available, but you could get for a much cheaper price. Example on the Rockets, Robert Covington. He can fit on any team in the NBA right now. I'm sure you could find a spot for him. He is one of the only guys that I think could truly fit on any team in the NBA. And you could probably get him for a lot cheaper than getting James Harden that's going to have nights where he throws up 40 shots and only makes 5 of them, right? I mean, I've never heard a problem about Robert Covington, with chemistry or anything. There's a recent report that said, all of the guys on the Rockets were unhappy with their current situation. Austin Rivers, PJ Tucker, Eric Gordon. And Robert Covington was not on that list. He is a more skilled Alex Caruso. And when I say that, I mean he accepts his role, right? So that's just it from the Nets perspective. From the Rockets perspective, this has to be one of the worst trade packages you could get for James Harden. Okay? The reason I say this is for some of these guys, and I mean this with no disrespect, I believe that these guys are very good at basketball, but Some of these guys like Spencer Dinwiddie and Karis LeVert, this is just opportunity shots here, right? And that's and by that I mean if you have your two, superstars that are supposed to carry you to a championship out, I mean, who does it fall on? It falls upon the bench guys, so they're going to get a lot more touches. They're going to be relied upon more, which is naturally going to lead to inflated stats. I feel like this is the case for a couple of guys in the league, mainly Devontae Graham. But that's the point. Sometimes when there's just more touches to go around, people are going to put up more points. So that's the case with that. Now, do I think they're still good basketball players? Yes, but I don't think they're James Harden level good. Now, the next deal I have here is how old is James Harden? I believe he's 31, right? Okay. So when was the last time the Nets made a, mega trade for someone, A trade with all of their picks that was supposed to bring them, a future championship. Kevin Garnett. Does that name sound familiar to anyone? I'm still on the Nets, by the way. I said I was going to go over and talk about it from the Rockets' perspective. I'm talking about it from the Nets' perspective. Anyways, mortgaging your future for an aging superstar who's not exactly the most efficient guy of all time. That doesn't sound like a good recipe to me. I'm not entirely sure on James Harden's contract status right now. I know he is locked up for a very long time, 4 or 5 years, I believe. But what I'm trying to say here is it does give me flashbacks, or not flashbacks because I didn't care about basketball back then, but it seems similar to me. And obviously, there are differences and all that. But this is already an aging group of superstars. One of whom is coming off a major injury in Kevin Durant. Kyrie Irving is often injured and has already, been proven to be a bad teammate. I mean, it's just whack to me. I don't think it fits well. It doesn't look good for the Nets. Trading away Jared Allen. I mean, now you do have DeAndre Jordan to replace him, but Jared Allen is a younger guy, so obviously you would want to see how he progresses more than a older DeAndre Jordan who is getting what $40 million for 4 years. So now we are finally, hopefully, finished with the Nets' point of view. Okay. I say hopefully because my mind tends to just kind of go all sorts of random places. Now we can talk about the Rockets' point of view. If I'm the Rockets GM, I'm going to look at that. I'm going to say, is that really the best trade package I can get for James Harden? Right? Now, whatever you want to say about his, efficiency, his shot selection, his defense, he is still an MVP candidate. Right? Look at what we got for the last MVP candidate that was traded in Paul George. What, 5 first-round picks, a young guy in Shea, and Gallinari, who is borderline all-star. Gallinari is another one of those Robert Covington dudes that can fit on pretty much any team, by the way. And a fit guy. So what I'm trying to say here is this really, 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 really the best trade package you can get for this dude? And I say, no, not at all. All right. Call up people, ask them. Call up the 76ers. Call up your old friend Daryl. Say, hey, Ben Simmons, a couple of firsts. What you saying? How you feeling about that? Call up all sorts of teams, right? There's so many options. Call up the Thunder. I mean, why not? They've got a bunch of first rounds. Call them up. Say, hey, Harden, he and Chris Paul can play again. Throwing Shy at small forward. Lou Dort at power forward, I guess, and you're chilling. Give me a couple firsts and we got a deal, right? I mean, crazier things have happened, right? There's so many teams. Call up the Bucks. Say, hey, Chris Middleton and tons of firsts, and I'll give you James Harden so you can keep Giannis in theory. Right? There's so much more here, right? There's so much more you need to do. I certainly don't think James Harden should be traded on the trade deadline tomorrow, or on the trade deadline today at this point, November 16th. I certainly do not think they should. I think they need to wait this one out and see what they can get. for the guy. Now, like, just there's so many better trade packages you could get. It just baffles me. Call up the Magic, say, hey, Vucevic, we want to finally get a guy over 6'5" on our team. Can you give us him, Markelle Fultz, and tons of firsts, and we'll give you James Harden? Basically, what I'm trying to say here is you need to talk around the league. Just because Harden wants something doesn't mean he's going to get it. He is an MVP. We've been over that before. But he signed a contract understanding that he's going to be likely stuck on that team for 5 years unless they decide to trade him. And when I'm the team, yes, I want to, make the dude happy. I mean, he's given us a couple good years, some all-right playoff runs. But at the same time, I have to worry about the future of the team. And if that means dumping James Harden in freaking Orlando for a borderline all-star, a younger guy, and a bunch of firsts, then I'm doing that. I mean, look at what we got for Paul George. And you could even argue, you could definitely after the last playoffs argue that James Harden is better than Paul George. That's debatable, obviously. But if I'm correct, last year it was Giannis, James, and Paul in the MVP voting. And this year it was Giannis, LeBron, and then James Harden. But basically, the deal is that there are a lot better packages that they could get for James Harden. I mean, the Magic could just win. Call, say, the Pistons. I mean, call up the Wizards. I mean, I know they've robbed Bradley Beal already, but you can make it work, right? Call up Miami. I mean, there's just so many better options you could get. Jared Allen is the younger dude that they would get if they were doing this Nets trade. Karis LeVert and Spencer Dinwiddie would be, the two All-Stars, and then I'm assuming they would include lots of picks. But my issue here with this is Jared Allen has already shown himself to be one-dimensional. So far, he's defense in the paint and not much else besides that. You do get offense with him, but it's not within, 4 feet of the rim, 5 feet of the rim? And that is definitely an issue in the modern NBA, which is concerning. I feel like that's about it. I don't think either team should go through with this trade. Doesn't make sense for either team, in my opinion. Lot better trades. If you're the Nets, I think you should at least start the season and see how Kyrie, KD, and this bench goes. And if you're the Rockets, try and start a bidding war, or straight up trade him for a better available package. I mean, he might not want to play in Orlando, but if he gets traded there, then he's going to play in Orlando, So yeah, that is it for this video. This was a bit of a longer one, but hey, crazy trade, crazy video. So like and subscribe, or comment if you think James Harden should do something, I guess. I don't even know. Just comment. It gets YouTube more likely to recommend my video, so just comment whatever the heck you want. Like and subscribe. I said that already. Have a good day.